So growing jobless claims could now lead to more financial assistance being sent out to the American people. I want to see President Biden, everybody, send out more stimulus checks to help out Americans. There are still many Americans that are struggling because of the crisis, and many Americans are in need of a fourth stimulus check. It simply must be done before the end of the year. If you guys agree with me that a fourth stimulus check needs to be sent out as soon as possible, then let's get this video to 1,000 likes.
$8 trillion in additional debt and bills we have to now pay off. That's more than a quarter of the entire debt incurred now outstanding after more than 200 years. And Republicans in Congress raised the debt 3 times when Donald Trump was president, and each time with Democrat support. But now they won't raise it, even though they're responsible for more than $8 trillion in bills incurred in 4 years under the previous administration. Folks watching at home, you should know this is the Republican position. They won't vote to raise the debt limit to cover their own spending. Democrats voted with them to cover that spending last 4 years, the previous 4 years. They say Democrats should do it alone. But then they're threatening to use a procedural power called the filibuster, meaning that we'd have to get 60 votes, not 50 votes, to increase the debt limit. Not only are Republicans refusing to do their job, they're threatening to use their power, to prevent us from doing our job, saving the economy from a catastrophic event. Republicans say they will not do their part to avoid this needless calamity. So be it. But they need to stop playing Russian roulette with the U.S. economy. It's one thing to pay our debts already acquired. It's another to require a supermajority to pay the debts already acquired. It's not right. Let the Democrats vote to raise the debt ceiling this week, without obstruction or further delays. Democrats in the House have already passed a bill that would do that. It's sitting in the United States Senate where Democrats have the votes ready to pass it. That's the only way to eliminate the uncertainty and risk that's going to harm American families and our economy. Let us vote and end the mess.
We have to pass a strong reconciliation bill, and we have to pass a BIF bill. And there are some in our caucus who still want more than 3-5. The vast majority of our caucus, every one of them, voted for a budget resolution with reconciliation instructions that said 3-5. But everyone knows there's going to have to be give and compromise. But I think we all realize we're going to have to come together and pass something. Not just about everyone will be disappointed in some things, just about everyone will be pleased with some things, but we will get it done.
So without wasting any more of your time, everybody, here's the most important stimulus check news. It's been nearly 7 months since President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan into action. The bills provided struggling Americans with a variety of economic benefits, like the third stimulus checks of $1,400. So, though progressive lawmakers and everyday Americans argue that this year's bill isn't enough, future round stimulus checks or recurring monthly payments will be needed until the crisis ends. The push for a fourth round of stimulus checks and the recurring payments has been ongoing for months. That is due to last week's joblessness numbers increasing by 16,000. So now a change in our petition is calling for $2,000 monthly stimulus checks to be approved from the federal government. This will help many Americans get back on their feet. The petition stands at over 2.9 million signatures, but needs 3 million people to be regarded as a top campaign on the website. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture recently announced that farm workers and meatpacking workers are now eligible to receive stimulus checks. These funds will help people pay for the crisis-related health and safety net costs. So progressive members of Congress insisted on Sunday that 2 key parts of President Biden's legislative agenda would advance in tandem as negotiations with the moderate wing of the Democratic Party continue. House progressives stood firm in refusing to advance the Senate-passed $550 billion infrastructure bill, without movement at least on a separate measure that is done to strengthen the social safety net, and after President Biden appeared to conclude that slim Democratic majorities in both chambers had intertwined their fates. Carmella J. Powell had promised that more than half her group's 95 members would vote against the infrastructure bill if it came before the safety net bill, the size of which has been the subject of intense disagreement between the Democratic Party's factions. Moderates have pushed for a pared-down version, while progressives insist that the plan's $3.5 trillion price tag would boost the economy that has been affected by the crisis. Now, everybody, despite weeks of haggling and a last-minute visit by Biden to visit the Capitol, Democratic leaders have delayed the infrastructure vote on Friday after it became clear that it wouldn't pass. Moderates were unhappy that an agreement couldn't come together. Senator Sinema and Joe Manchin has objected to a $3.5 trillion measure, blasted House Democrats for their failure to vote on the bipartisan infrastructure plan. And both measures, everybody, have the support of Democrats, but they remain likely to pass in some form. The size of the safety net bill, which Democrats are trying to pass on a party line basis, remains a sticking point. Biden told Democratic leaders at the meeting Friday the negotiations have already lowered the top line price tag to $1.9 trillion to $2.3 trillion. Biden told reporters that there is no reason why both bills cannot be sent out and cannot be approved. But everybody, Nancy Pelosi has just said this. She has set a new deadline of October 31st to pass the infrastructure bill. The House is in a committee work period for the next 2 weeks, and members have been advised that they will be given 72 hours notice if they need to return to Washington for significant legislation. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I truly appreciate everybody's amazing support. If you have any more questions about this, then be sure to leave them in the comments below.
Our reckless government spending. Now, I had COVID. I got both the vaccines. We got both my shots. What I'm hearing from businesses now is they're scared to death that there's going to be a lot of employees that will not come back to work because of Biden's vaccine mandate. And we already have a supply chain problem that's causing prices to go up. So what happens if 10% of our workers decide not to show up because they don't want to get the vaccine that Biden's mandating them get? What's that going to do to our supply chain, which is already fragile? And what's that going to do to prices where we already are seeing shortages? So all these things that the Biden administration is doing has unintended consequences. But right now, the biggest consequence is we're seeing constant inflation.
McConnell.
Yeah.
As you talk about the debt ceiling, are we to believe that your telephone is not wrong from investors in New York, Wall Street, people concerned about your position on this, that is not happening as we get closer to this 18th deadline?
Well, we're all hearing about the need to do this. The only issue is who does it. It's not in dispute that the debt ceiling needs to be addressed. The only issue is who does it. And I've been over this repeatedly with you all and others since July.
So they've called you but have they called you to implore the banking industry, Wall Street investors?
I'm sure we've heard from everybody, and I'm sure the Democrats have as well.
Have you heard from President Biden? He said
I've not heard from the president. We had an exchange of pleasantries yesterday.